I'd do like DJ style, like. We're missing a banner. DNC 284. Cool. Turn off notifications, John. Phone in airplane mode. Can't have. Ooh, that water bottle's very transparent.
God, Twitch. Science and technology. It keeps on like categorizing. It's up on me.
Hola. You know, in ham radio world, sometimes when you have your in order to tell if your radio is tuned up to your antenna, by which that means like transferring the most amount of power between your radio and the antenna, you have to transmit a signal in order to, you know, see how much signal is being transmitted. It's kind of a anyway. So all the Spanish speakers, all you hear, just sometimes you just be tuning around, and then you just hear some guy on his frequency by himself, hola, 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 over and over again as he's like tuning up his radio.
Mic check. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. That's what the sound people do. 1 2 1 2. They go up and down, up and down. 1 2 1.
New follower.
What's up, John? Thanks for following. We're just doing our mic checks. 1 2. Hey. They always do it like that cadence. Hey, and then they point the mic at the monitor to see if it'll feedback. So you get like a screech the first time.
Right.
Hey, and then it's like they're flinging
down.
It's like they're flinging a lightsaber at the thing. See if it'll. Oh, you been binging the old episodes?
Wow.
Awesome.
Start from the beginning. I haven't even done that.
Me either.
I mean, I was listening to the show before this, but not that much before. You don't even listen to these, do you, Sean? Secret's
No.
out.
I haven't for about 100 episodes now.
What if we scroll this? Oh, that's distracting.
Oh, they must be adding new options. I'd really be actually. Let me just crack open the web inspector here. I'm sure. I'd like to learn how they're like, you know.
Oh, you want to see how they're doing the
stuff.
scroll?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, I'll put the scroll back on. They're
This
probably
canvas,
using
like, what is this?
Yeah, this is all rendered in the browser, which kind of blows my mind, because what I want to know is when we're doing like this crap screwing around in the browser, where is this being rendered and then pushed to the cloud, right? Like,
Right.
where does the RTMP stream initiate from? Is it literally from one of our computers?
I don't see any WebSockets.
You got to
probably have to
refresh.
refresh to be able to
Yeah,
see
you have to
it.
refresh. Please don't refresh. I mean, you do you. But it literally must be, because this is like, yeah, if I inspect this. All right, we're getting meta here. Hold on. Share screen. Because if we inspect this, there is a div here sliding around. I just saw it. So they must be capturing this somehow and send it over our WebRTC. Where is it? There's a button. Pretty cool. I love how there's this div and then chords is just object to object.
I have to zoom in on that bad boy.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's IntelliJ I see in the sidebar there.
Yeah, I don't even pay for it anymore. But here's you got object to object here, right? That's legit, right?
Yeah, nothing I haven't seen before.
I mean, it's not doing anything, right?
Audio
Here's
and
a
video.
stream.
Yeah.
So that's some kind of stream. Ticker animated. Here we go. Ticker. Oh, okay. Here we go. So we've got, it's generated 3 ticker divs with a bunch of padding. There they go. And then it must just wrap it around with some math. I don't know. Where does this one go? Yeah, off to the right. How does it know to do 3?
Somebody probably
Maybe.
tested and figured out that 3 would
Yeah,
work.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like a max number of characters you can add.
Okay, so here's a question. If I change it to DNC 285, does that show up in this stream? I mean, I know it shows up in this stream, but does it show up in the other stream? Does that say 285 to people? Or do they still see 284?
It says 284 on mine.
Well, sure, because I edited my own DOM, but... I guess because you're the host, in theory, it could be coming from your screen. 284. Thanks, John. Thanks for QA. Appreciate it. We're solving the hard problems here at DNC.
Reverse engineering. Let's see here. You wanna kick into it?
I guess so. Let's get this banner. Is really distracting though.
We could hit up that Thomas code review since he asked for one in the Discord. I
We're
created
doing
a
some-
code review channel in Discord.
Oh, see, I miss being in the Discord during the week, man. I don't have time. Where's code review? Code review. Such a great idea.
Under technical, yeah.
What's happening in the background there? Someone is crumpling a paper bag.
Yeah, it's Jamie. She'll be done within a second.
Okay, no worries.
She just brought home dinner, so
Is she gonna share?
when we're done, maybe.
Why vertical dock? Because my screen is 16:9, and I don't want to use my precious vertical pixels. And that's especially true on the MacBook screen when you're shrunken down there. Vertical dock life.
Yeah, in my editors, I always have editor left, terminal, and other things on the right. Split 50-50.
So I just recently, so I usually put editor right, browser left, right? But then I recently started in VS Code putting the project navigator all the way to the right. So it's not like literally in the middle of my screen where I'm not looking most of the time. That's been a huge help. On Linux, you can auto-dismiss the dock if it overlaps a window.
That is a thing on Mac. Auto hide.
Well, it doesn't. It's not based on overlapping. It's just based off of time. The problem with that is that I don't like waiting for the dock to show up. Like because there's a little bit of you have to slam your cursor on the left side, and then there's a little bit of a pause, and you got to wait for it to show up, and then you got to look for the icon that you're looking for. It's a lot of steps of indirection.
I just don't use it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could not click on the dock too. I mean, I'm mostly command tabbing or doing Alfred most of the time, if I'm being completely honest. But
Right.
command, what's it called? Spaceship. The thing where all the windows fly up and then you can click them.
Oh, yeah.
Control center, no
Mission
control
control
center.
or whatever?
Mission control. God, so dumb names. Auto hide but manual show. Not sure what that means. There's a third-party app that does it, but the overlap area is too large. No, these are not Sennheiser, Mike. This is a pile.
A pile.
It's a pile piece of crap knockoff of a Shure, the popular Shure dynamic mic. This is like $12. Just $12 I have spent on a microphone, if I'm being completely honest. Seems well built too. I mean, I don't travel with it, but good construction. I know the Shures are like, yeah, I'll drop a link. Hold on, let me get my Amazon referral code.
I think this one was $250. The Shure was something around there.
Pile. It's a pile of crap.
Welcome again, John. Thanks for hanging around.
It does sound pretty decent. That's why I was pleasantly surprised. I just bought it on a whim because I wasn't happy with any of the stuff I found. $15.57 with free shipping. And it even comes with a quarter-inch jack cord for some reason. Also, Amazon Basics sells XLR cables, and they're nice. Just saying.
I got some Gamis laying around somewhere. Lifetime warranty on those. You better believe I've called that in a couple of times. You send them the old one, they'll send you a new one.
That's dope. Stand by it. That's good.
Expensive though.
Yes.
You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm recording.
Oh my god! Don't install.
Don't install Ace. Don't install Ace. I did it before the show.
Oh, on both loopback and audio hijack. Every time it's like dangerous. All right. Yep.
I guess it's my turn. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3.
I like Shure because it's dependable. Old Faithful hasn't let me down. Hasn't broken.
They got that brand loyalty going on. I've only heard good things, but like, but I don't know
3
any better.
Shure mics. I have this one, MV7. I have the SM57, and I have an SM. I forget what model number it is, but it's the flat one for miking guitar cabs. It's like an SM57. It's just flat instead of like a regular kind of like
sure
pointy microphone.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to drape that over. It was really nice for touring because you could actually just like tape that sucker onto your amp and
just right to it.
Yeah, right on the grow cloth. Yeah. Have I recorded vocals on them? Yes. The SM57 specifically, not the other one.
I was looking at the SM57 or like the A maybe for this purpose, because I know that's what Marco recommends. That's what he uses. I had listened to it. I only thought it sounded just okay. I don't know.
It's a pretty great like guitar and sometimes drum mic depending on what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
It'll pass for vocals, but yeah, I haven't really used it for much else than that.
The thing that's really appealing, I think that's the one that's like the hypercardioid, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's very, very narrow pattern, which is appealing because I can crank the gain up without getting, obviously I don't have any sound padding or anything.
Right, neither do I right now.
Well, that spaceship bridge is just full of, it's just all hard reflective surfaces.
Echoes. It's all, I don't even know what it is. Plastic.
In space, no one can hear you, Echo.
That's right. So how was, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you.
How was, first of all, what is a vacation and how was the vacation?
Oh yeah. Vacation was fine. Went up to the Lake Winnipesaukee area in New Hampshire. I've spent some time up there, but never really done a vacation up there. It was fine. The weather's kind of crappy. But just very chill. Jess and I hanging out, doing basically what we wanted. Went to Fun Spot a couple of times. Fun Spot is this. They call it titles itself as the world's largest arcade. I don't know how true that is, but it is super super impressive. It's a big like entertainment center for kids and families. They have bowling and skee ball and modern arcade games and recreation rooms and whatever, right? But there's a whole floor that's just vintage video game cabinets, like all the originals, in like this low lit room, just aisles and aisles of them, and you just 25 cents a play, right? Just play with tokens, and they're all kept up and functional, and you can play them, and it's amazing to take that kind of step back in time, and it's basically like a museum that you can play the games at, and it's really really awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when we were living in Vermont, a couple of times we went to an arcade bar. You go in and they have like different arcade games kind of lining the wall. We played pinball. We used to play pinball quite a bit. The machines were all kind of quirky or sticky, but it was still kind of fun.
That's part of the fun, right?
Yeah, shout out to Kevin and Katie. We went to hang out with them in Vermont. My first friend in Vermont.
Cool.
Yeah, he emailed me and said, "Hey, I heard you're moving to Vermont. I live here. Let's hang out." I was like, "Okay." So we still keep in touch.
I was never like super into pinball, but I have some friends who are, and I know it's like a whole thing. It's just fascinating to hear about. I think of the history and the brands and the tables and the meta game of playing pinball, and man, it's just fascinating. It seems like something I might could totally get interested in because of the sort of electromechanical aspect of, owning a table and repairing it and stuff. It seems fascinating to me.
I don't think I'd want to do that. Yeah, Kevin was just emailing me or texting me yesterday. I think it was yesterday about he had finally had a chance to try out Dino for something, and he said it was pretty nice to use TypeScript with no sort of build tooling or build steps or anything like that. So that sounds like a nice feature.
It's coming, Sean.
Yeah.
Someday.
I'm
praying for you.
Yeah, and we're waiting. Yeah, we just have to wait on Prisma too. I'm gonna suspend myself in animation for Dino to become mainstream, and then Prisma to like finish having all the other things that other ORMs have, like test database setups and strategies. And to be fair, like they give you some recipes on their site, but it's basically just like install Docker and make a second database, connect to it. It's like, well, there's still a lot that I have to do myself here. So
I know we were talking about this a little bit in Discord, but the way you're talking about how Prisma has you do testing and migrations and all this stuff reminds me a lot of when you were doing Go and, trying to set up the database access to that. It's like nothing is really fleshed out, and they sort of encourage you to build your own.
Right. Yep. There's
for better or for worse.
There was like you can search for Golang migration or something similar to that, and you'll get a dozen results of different tools that kind of help you manage it. I don't recall. There were like two main popular ones. I don't recall what they're called now, but same thing. Like you install the tool, and then it says create a directory here called migrations, and the migration files were just SQL files with some sort of delineation in the middle. So the one on top is up and the one on bottom is down. And that's kind of the strategy. So you kind of have to appreciate it for what it is. It's so
funny because I'm trying to think back when I was working in the Cold Fusion shop for a couple of summers when I was in high school. We were using Microsoft SQL Server and Cold Fusion hosted on IIS. And I'm trying to remember how we migrated database schemas. Like, did we just do it by hand? I don't think we had scripts for it. Like, I feel like what we would do was we would like clone down the database, make the changes, and then restore the database. Like, take the site down, clone down production, tweak the stuff locally, and then upload it or something like that. Like, that's you can afford to do that. It's e-commerce. You do it in the middle of the night. Who cares, right? Not ideal.
Yeah, so it can be done. You just sort of have to will it or do it, I suppose. Put it together. So, I mean, to be fair though, like with Prisma, last night I wanted to work on something, just had a fun idea. We'll never see the light of day. So, I actually, hold on, let me pull up the GitHub link for this. I created a, .com/Sean Wash. I'm typing the URL right now. Next, TypeScript starter. I created a
Come for the hot take. Stay for Sean reading URLs out loud as he types them.
Yeah. I created a template repo. That's what it's called, template repository.
Oh, okay.
In GitHub. So, yeah, it just has a few of the things that I like to use in it. So it doesn't have Prisma in it, but it has Next plus TypeScript. It has Cypress, React Hook Form, and React Query. So those are kind of like my favorite abstractions for things in a React world. So, yeah, I made a new repo with that and slapped Prisma in there with SQLite and was just, testing out this thing that I wanted to kind of hack around. So it was super easy and kind of nice just to have that. In the past, I've always looked for external, like third-party templates because there's tons of them for Next or whatever else you want in the Node ecosystem. But this one's mine, I guess.
That's cool. So the idea is you just fork it or you clone it down and just do a new branch or something?
No, GitHub has an actual template feature where you mark a repo as a template and you click use this template and it creates...
that's not a thing.
It is, 100%. 100%.
That is awesome. Hold on, I have one of these.
Yeah.
I'm doing this right now. I have my Nux template. I mean, this is... Oh, we found potential security vulnerabilities. No shit.
If you go into settings, it's at the top in the repo settings, make a template, make this a template. So you can't really fork it, or the forks, like the templates created don't necessarily point back to the template, if I'm remembering correctly. It's just kind of like spawns a copy of it as is to a new repo.
Use this template. Cool.
Yeah.
I dig this. Don't use my template. I'm not even going to link to it. It's old.
Right.
But
yeah, so I just spun this up and was working. And
cool.
It's kind of nice to have. But yeah, I chucked Prisma into it, and I'm becoming more and more familiar with the things that you sort of have to do by hand. So I'm able to just kind of like fly through them now. So on my, on Rodinia, I'm still hacking on it, using it as sort of like a learning and testing playground. And on Rodinia, I in a branch, I'm pretty close to having like an actual like seeding and testing a test database strategy set up with Prisma. I think I was kind of explaining this to you a little bit, how actually tearing down the DB and like recreating it was real slow, or like removing the DB or not the whole Postgres itself, but the actual DB inside. So I ended up having to use like a truncate all the tables strategy instead, which in turn, it deletes all the data and resets the IDs back to one. The sequential IDs. So it's fine enough, but it's not like a true fresh, copy of a database.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's much faster. The reason why I didn't go the other route of just like deleting the DB and creating a new one was it added a minute to the bottom line of the tests that I was using to Cypress.
That's confusing. Like, how many tables do you have?
There was like 3-4 tables. There's
got
to be something to it, but
yeah.
I mean, Cypress isn't the fastest anyway. It's not supposed to be super fast anyway. But yeah, it went from like running all the tests that I had in, 25 seconds to like 90 seconds or something like that.
I wonder if there was some open connection pool or something I was waiting to time out or close before it could drop the database or tables. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it could be. I went to Prisma's docs and they actually have a little snippet that you can use to you import the client, right? So the client is generated, the Prisma client's generated from the schema in the DB, and they basically have a snippet where you can iterate over all of the model types in the generated client, which then you could translate into a truncate statement. So you just, for every model that we have, truncate its table in the database. So easy enough.
That works.
I still have to do it though.
Yeah.
So while you were on vacation, I was sort of digging deeper into testing on the front end. And this is something that I've never really tried to dig into or tried to be good at because for whatever reason in the past, it's always sort of been the last thing you think about, or one of the last things you think about, or, client doesn't have budget for it, or any number of excuses, right? or it's a waste of time and to unit test, whatever. There's 100 excuses you could use, but I decided to just, look into it, I guess, some more, trying to get more familiar and more comfortable with it. So, I originally picked Jest because it's like the big one. And more recently, I've settled on using Cypress more because I feel like I could get more bang for my buck out of it.
I remember when I was doing React stuff too, there was a lot of one of the apps I worked on briefly used sagas.
Yes.
And
Redux sagas?
Redux sagas. Well, there's sagas and then there's Redux sagas, right? And yeah, but the idea was that sort of allows you to sort of isolate side effects in a way that makes them easier to test.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wasn't sure if if you're doing anything similar for like, I'm not sure. Basically mocking out external calls to things, whether it's a database or whatever.
So I guess let me go through the landscape of this a little bit, right? In Node land, you have, so for Elixir, you have XUnit. There are probably other runners out there, but XUnit's the most prevalent one. In Ruby, you have mini tests, right?
Yeah, and there's another one too.
There's RSpec is one of them as well.
Yeah.
So you basically have like these main sort of players in the game. With Node, there have been like a ton of different like assertion frameworks or assertion libraries or whatever. So in the past, there's been like AVA. There's been, I don't mean like these are all defunct, but they still exist. But there's been like AVA. There's been Chai. There's been Mocha. There's been a bunch of different things. Jest is one of the more popular ones. It's I believe it's maintained by Facebook, or like, similarly to how React might be. And so Jest is like the big player at this point, as far as I understand. So Jest is very much more on the unit test side of things than you might. So you have like the end-to-end test of things, which is like something's driving the browser and clicking on UI elements and rendering them. And then the unit test, which is where something is running small isolated tests and it's not like a live browser environment. So it might be like JS DOM or some other sort of DOM implementation, but it's not like a real browser running. I was looking into Jest, and there are actually some really cool or really useful tools out there. So there's testing library, and then React testing library. So testing library is a bunch of utilities for working with the DOM, testing the DOM. So there's like testing library DOM, testing library React, and the API is really nice to work with. So in the past, I've also used one called Enzyme, which is similar. So Jest is the runner. Enzyme is the utility that allows you to actually like dig through the DOM and assert like, oh, this input has text in it, or this list has 4 items in it, or whatever, right? So testing library would be similar to Enzyme. My issue with Enzyme is that it gives you, you can get done what you need to get done, but testing library just makes it a lot easier to get those things done. There's less manual work to getting those things done. So maybe what I mean is they give you more robust matchers or ways to sort of navigate the DOM through there. So that's Jest and testing library. Those are the two that I would use, especially for unit testing these days. So on the other side of the spectrum, there's Cypress, which I mentioned was something that actually loads up. With Cypress, you create these tests, and it actually opens a Chrome window, and it lays out the tests in a list, and it runs through them. You can watch it, click around on the UI, and like enter things. And
that must be so slow.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot slower, but we can talk about this in a minute too. But like, I think the bang for your buck is larger here for a couple of reasons. So Cypress is on the other end. But Cypress also allows you to write request tests. So like if you have an API and you wanted to make API requests and test that layer without having the UI rendering, you could write those too with Cypress, and it's way faster, of course. And then there's also, they introduce component level testing, which is sort of encroaching into the Jest React testing library space, right? So Cypress does kind of like top, like if you're thinking end-to-end top, it goes top down to like mid, and then Jest goes from like bottom up to mid, and they kind of like have this little gray area with overlap.
What's that? Is it called Playbook?
Playwright?
The kitchen sink thing. where you have all your components.
Storybook?
Storybook.
Yeah.
Could you do like a Storybook unit test where you could test individual components by clicking around on them? Is that a thing that even makes sense? Like, that's the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about unit testing React components in the browser. It's like you've got this Storybook that's you can also click on and play with. I don't know if that's a thing. It sounds like it might be interesting though.
There are, so as far as I'm aware, I mean, I could be wrong on this. Someone will probably correct me, but as far as I'm aware, there's not any like unit testing thing with Storybook, but there are a ton of add-ons for it. So for example, there are add-ons where, and they actually have their own service where as you push up changes, it'll actually do a visual diff of things. And so you can actually see like if something visually changed. I think that's a whole nother layer of the stack that's probably almost as important because I was listening to a podcast the other day and Angie Jones was on it. And she's awesome. She has I don't remember the link off the top of my head, but she has a testing academy that's free online. And so she was talking about how that whole visual testing side of the thing is often forgotten, but it's really easy to do things like, have these unit tests that test things that happen, but they don't catch like, oh, this is actually being covered up by another element, or it's like being rendered off the screen, or, accessibility is jacked up here. So you can add visual regression testing onto the mix where you're actually looking at the differences. Is the contrast okay here? Are we passing AA or AAA? Is there something laying on top of it? You know what I mean? You kind of like catch a whole nother set of cases that could exist.
That's pretty cool. And that's like, is that just, what am I trying to say? Normally, I mean, you could have a QA person or people to catch that kind of stuff, but it's just the idea is to catch it even before that.
Yeah, or the idea there too is to augment that. So what I was listening to JS Party, I think the podcast is. It's one of the more popular ones by Changelog. And Angie was on there, and there was another guest on there. I don't recall her name, but she works at Spotify, and she says that they have this visual regression testing system in place. And then once every month or X number of, they have like a recurring time where everyone in their team gets together and they all go through and just click test. They all go through and just like make sure that it's all good. So that's an additional
1,000 monkey with 1,000 typewriters.
Yes, exactly. So, and this is one of the reasons why I never really got into front-end testing, because I was like, where do you start? All of these things have valid reasons and valid, reasons for existing and being important. It's just kind of like, where do you start? And so
I would even before that, I would think about what's important. What is the most valuable? What has the most value for the time you're going to invest to not only write the test, but also maintain the test, have someone look at the test results, right? Like, yeah.
So that's where I landed on. That's why I landed on Cypress being probably what I want to sink my teeth into for now, because I get the most bang there. So
a little more holistic approach.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's more towards the top of the stack. You can actually, you can do API level tests, and you can do tests where it clicks around in the browser. What's really cool about Cypress is that each test has a step, an action that you do. So like Cypress.find this input, Cypress.fill it with this text, Cypress.click or find this button, Cypress.click. And so each step in the test, it actually has a list item in the script on the left. And you can hover your mouse over each line item, and it'll actually like show you that state in the UI on the browser. And so if like you're clicking on a button, it'll actually show you like what button's being clicked, and it'll like give it a different color and all this stuff. So it's almost, I almost got to a point where I wasn't necessarily TDDing, but it was faster for me to, okay, now I need to go here and click on this thing. I need to do a bunch of times. So I'm just going to write it in Cypress. I'm going to pull open the Cypress window and run the test. And then I can use the browser, like I can use the app inside the Cypress browser, right?
Oh, you just pause it in the middle and then at some state, and then you just click around.
Or you can do cy.debug, or you can, I'll talk about this, how you chain their commands in a second, but you can just slap debug on it and it'll just fire the debugger right where it's at. And so you have the entire app state there, just paused for you. So you can essentially like automate a bunch of a tedious thing to click test and slap a debugger wherever you need it.
So, quick aside, I don't really know a ton about live view testing, but I've been writing some because I've been writing a lot of live view and writing a lot of tests. And first of all, live view testing is freaking amazing. I won't get us distracted with that right now, but it's really, really awesome how it works. One of the things you can do is in the middle of a test, there's literally a function, I think it's called open browser. Mm-hmm. You just pipe, you tweak your live view, you say open browser, and it just pops it open like in the middle of the test. Even though it's totally running headless in memory, without a browser running. It's not interactive, unfortunately. It just gives you sort of like a static, like here's an HTML blob of the state of the thing, so you can look at it, but it's not interactive, right? But that kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I have something there I can poke at or look at.
That's super handy, super useful. Even just looking at the rendered markup, I think would be useful. Cypress has a headless runner mode as well. So actually in WebStorm, there's a Cypress plugin. You add it, and then you can run, because WebStorm has a built-in like test runner UI specifically. And so the Cypress plugin adds a runner for Cypress. So I'm on my Cypress test, I just hit Control-Shift-R, and it spins it up in headless mode and runs it next to my code. And so I can actually like use debug there, and it'll spit out the markup just like you're saying too, which is actually really handy. So you don't have to have it always like, Chrome open and like something flying around the browser. So it almost got to a point where I was actually using this as like a TDD thing, because I knew it would just be faster for me to write this command really quickly and then have it work. And I guess like I can talk more about the plumbing too, because you talked about how would you mock an API request, or how would you deal with those situations. So the Cypress has, you can basically abstract these commands out. So like, for example, if you have to log in 20 times in different tests, you wouldn't want to click through the login UI 20 times. You might want to have a test that tests to make sure your login works. But what you do is you create a login command, which you would use cy.request. And so basically it's similar to fetch, where you pass in method, URL, all that. It makes an API, it like makes the request for you, and it actually forwards any of the headers and cookies. So if you have an API that you log into, you just send the login request, it sets the cookie in the Cypress runner, and you're effectively logged in for that test. So basically you create all these like one-off commands to do this. You can also use, I forget what the command is now, but cy.something. And in any test, you can actually say cy, basically mock this URL and return this data to the UI. So that's essentially how you would mock a third-party service. It's just kind of built in right there.
Right, because it's just URL based, and you're in the browser, you can just intercept that and do whatever you want.
Yeah. I'm looking up the docs really quick now because it's bothering me that I can't remember what it's called.
cy.whatever.
cy.intercept is essentially the command you need. But yeah, so you would just say intercept this and respond with this data. So that way basically you can, because you don't care that the API is responding with what it needs to. So this way you have 3 tests, or 2 tests at least, one that tests happy path, like it worked and everything's fine. One that this thing is taking longer than normal, and so you might want to like assert that there's like a spinner or some sort of loading state or message, and then one where it failed and assert that you're handling a failed request properly.
So I assume you don't use Cypress for any sort of quote unquote unit testing, like lower level library code that's sort of can be tested in isolation, right? This is a totally separate beast from that. Basically, integration testing is what Cypress is.
Exactly, yeah, integration testing. So it does have the sort of more unit-based component tests, they call them, and that would be more of the unit testing side. They have that capability, but I haven't really got into that. So like we were talking about bang for your buck earlier, and I think like the sweet spot, especially early on with Cypress, is that you can just have, for every page, you just have a test that says it renders. And if something blows up, the page won't render, and you'll know.
Okay, so just it renders with no exceptions, basically.
Right, like make sure that like it renders with no exceptions, or you can say, you can actually I think specify like it renders without any console errors or warnings as well. So you can have it fail if that happens too. So
is it a real web app if there aren't a half dozen JavaScript errors when you load the page? I don't think so, Sean.
Well, the project I'm on, we flagged those and fixed those. So, so that's kind of like where the sweet spot for Cypress is for me right now. Is for most pages when I start working on them, or if there's no coverage for it, I'll just make a simple test to make sure the thing doesn't explode when a browser goes to it, and then move on. So it's not like I'm trying to, get into the page and test every single little bit that I can. Like, that'd be cool. But I think that's really it's more important for your, like, hey, make sure you make sure that you actually like test up your sign up flow. Like, you don't want that to break, or your checkout or cart flow. You don't want that to break either, And then for the other things, just make sure nothing catastrophic has happened. At least you'll get tipped off if something did, and you can dig in by hand and figure out what's going on.
You know what I do for tests?
What's that?
I just wait for a support ticket to come in and then I fix it.
Yeah,
that's my red-green refactor.
Yeah, and shout out to Brixru in the chat, because this is something that I was looking into as well. So they link to a library called Cypress Axe, which basically allows us to get into accessibility testing with Cypress as well, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, and Matt's talking to like, hey, you don't want to getting too wild with this stuff. You could introduce the thing you don't want is flaky tests, things that sometimes pass, sometimes fail. You want things to be deterministic, right? And so that's a great call out, Matt. And that is something that Cypress spends a lot of time talking about in the documentation. They have a whole guide on flaky tests and things to avoid. So that's a whole subject in and of itself. But
yeah, just the timing of things alone scares me when you're clicking around a browser, delays and stuff.
Oh, so Cypress automatically handles delays by default. You can actually send in a configuration for each command to say, oh, you should wait longer if you know it's going to be longer. But by default, Cypress commands will all wait for the thing in front of them to end or happen.
Like it waits for it to settle, basically.
Generally, it's pretty good. Like you're going to run into edge cases where you're frustrated and stuff, but generally, it's pretty solid. And I found the matchers to be really nice to use. So I believe that Cypress sort of uses Chai's matching and assertion under the hood. By matching, I mean like how you actually can traverse the DOM. And if I'm also remembering correctly, they actually sort of pulled in a bunch of stuff from the way jQuery does it into their setup. So it's actually like really easy to fly around the DOM, or fly around to get to the places you need and assert what you need to or want to assert. So it's surprisingly intuitive.
So are you running these tests locally, or are you running them on a CI somewhere? I'm sorry, I don't know the right terminology. Are you running this in the cloud anywhere?
Not yet.
Could you, in theory?
Yes. You use the headless runner mode.
Yeah, right, okay. Which is probably using XVFB behind the scenes and running Chrome in a virtual frame buffer. I know a lot about that, unfortunately. Not for testing, but because I do it, and it sucks, but it works.
Yeah, so it's I'm actually a big fan, and once I kind of got over the initial hump of reading through the documentation and remembering some of it, I feel pretty comfortable using it, and it makes me feel better about, especially I've been using Next more and Next API routes and all that stuff. So I feel like it's making me more comfortable with a lot of things, because with Next API routes, I can use the API or the cy.intercept or cy.request, to hit those and test those, because you can assert, just like you can assert stuff about the DOM or traverse the DOM, you can traverse JSON objects and assert things about JSON objects, and assert nested has property, whatever, stuff like that. So one tool allows me to hit both cases, high level, low level, and just continue on with building. So my whole goal is to, have this toolbox of things, have my template pre-configured. So when I want to build something, I'm like, all right, I'm good. I have my kit here. I'm ready to go. Sometimes I wish that would be Rails or Phoenix or something like that, but right now it's not. So
here's the ultimate question: has Cypress actually helped you catch some bugs, things you didn't think about, weird edge cases?
Yes. I find Next API routes not great because, I don't want to disparage them.
Let it all out, Sean. Give us your hot take. Come on.
It's not
your show.
It's not Express, but it's Express alike, which is the biggest thing to me. And then using Remix, my favorite thing about Remix was that the request and response objects were the same ones you'd have. Well, essentially the same ones you'd have in the browser. With Next API request and response objects, they're not. They're actually like a lot. They're their own thing and they're way smaller. And I find that with TypeScript, when you start adding more layers in, so like let's say you add connect middleware to it to make it compatible with Express middleware, basically request response next function style middleware, it becomes fun to like organize it and maintain it, and basically it's up to you. Like you're on your own at that point into like how you maintain it, how you organize it, how you test it. So it's fine. I just, I wish that they were more like, at some point most Next projects that are using the API routes are going to need connect middleware or something, or going to want connect middleware or something. So why not just go that extra mile and support it out of the box is my question.
So the whole thing of Next is convention over configuration, right? They have one way of doing that thing, but what it sounds like what you're saying is not flexible enough. There's not enough escape hatches to do it like nicely.
There are enough escape hatches, but
you just end up reinventing the wheel every time.
What I'm saying is I'd rather walk down 3 doors down the hall to get to an escape hatch instead of like the first door is the escape hatch, if that makes any sense.
It's a Monty Hall problem or something.
Yeah, right.
One of the escape hatches has a goat behind it.
Right, like it's like you turn right off the road and then there's like an inch of pavement and then it's gravel. It's like, well, you could have paved a little farther maybe before we hit gravel, So that's kind of what it feels like, but it's workable. It's one of those things where you have to do it a bunch of times before you kind of find your best practices. And there are a lot of people using these, and there are some libraries that try to help, but there's not many. There's only a few. So that's kind of like my only. I wouldn't even call it a critique. It's just a wish that there was more convention around this side of the tool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, having Cypress there. So you asked me if I've caught anything, and my answer is yes. So weirdness around when I'm fiddling with the middleware stuff. So my favorite auth thing for Next right now is called Next Iron Session. It's basically just encrypted cookie, just like Rails does it actually. So I'm using Firebase behind the scenes, and I use Next Iron Session to just slap stuff in a cookie. And so basically anytime I need to do any like, all right, is the user logged in? Are they an admin? I have to kind of like plumb the stuff by hand. And so having these tests in place like really quickly will help me know, oh, I broke authentication or something like that,
I have a rant about cookies, but maybe we can revisit that when you wrap this up. So I don't want you to finish your thought, but
no, that was basically it. Like it was Next Iron Session was really easy to use. There are other larger things like Next Auth, I think it's called. That thing comes with a whole stinking database for like authentication. Like you bolt it and it's got everything you need. It has like, third-party providers and stuff, but you could just say like, oh, I'm using this database and it'll like set everything up for you, all the sessions and everything, which is nice, but I don't need it or want that currently. So Next Iron Session is like a good simple middle ground.
Nice. You ain't gonna need it, right?
Not for my side projects, but if I were doing it for a client, you'd Pagny territory.
Probably gonna need it.
Yeah.
Something in between there. You ain't gonna need it. You're probably gonna need it. You might ain't gonna need it. I don't know.
So it's been, I don't know, like Cypress is kind of like, has been one of those tools where I'm like, wow, I can actually do a lot of stuff with this. Like, at some point I'll probably need to eject or add to it, right? Like add jest or something like that. But it gets me pretty far. And especially thinking about side projects and productivity. And I want that assurance that it's not broken, but I'm not shooting for 100% test coverage or anything like that, So it's like a good practical tool for that. And the documentation is killer.
Nice. I've heard a lot of good things about it. It's one of the few JS things that I've heard of, that in jest. And it seems, again, it just rubs me the wrong way. It feels weird to literally be clicking around a browser, but at the end of the day, like what's that's the best
That's
possible
what's happening.
test.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like drive the new car on the highway, see what happens. Yeah, and I mean, it's funny now because I'm thinking about my day job where we don't have any of those. We have some unit tests on the UI kit, but I'm thinking like this thing happens. I'm filing a bug report. I'm like, oh, I could like write I could write a Cypress test, and this would never happen again, or it would
So
never.
this is
ship
all.
again.
So this is all experimentation that's being done on your side projects. This is not work related at all right
Correct. Yeah.
now. Cool.
And I would like it to become more work related. That's one of the things that was sort of spurring me on to this was, and in consulting, that's always sort of a constant conversation of like, is a client going to want to pay for this? The client's expecting you to write the software correctly the first time, but they don't understand that testing. They don't understand that's impossible, first of all, but also that testing is a large portion of it. So it's hard to convince somebody to add that to the timeline when a lot of clients are always like, well, what can we cut to fit a budget? And testing is certainly, it should be an unspoken thing that's not pitched to the client. It should just become part of the process, but oftentimes it's not.
Sure. And also, it's probably really hard when you're in the middle or have inherited an existing large code base. Like this is one of the things that you really want to build on from day one.
Yeah. I've been having lots of trouble with the project that I'm using right now, or the project I'm working on right now with like npm link and version things, and like originally it was set up where MUI, which is one of the main dependencies. So with npm, I don't know what the terms for these are in npm, but like this, you got the squiggly line version number and you got the caret line version number, right? So the caret one will accept patch and minor version updates. So if you're doing like caret 2.4.3, the caret will allow installs up to 3.0 or 2.9 or whatever, right? The tilde in front of the version will only accept patches. So with MUI, they're using the caret version, and MUI shipped an update that deprecated a bunch of stuff or renamed these functions. And the client on their side, in their CI or something, it was like installing from scratch. There was no previous node module, so it installed the updated version, and TypeScript exploded because everything was deprecated. And they're like, "Hey, are your builds failing?" And I'm like, "No. Why should they be?" And then I was looking at the package, and it's like, "Oh, well, you're accepting these minor patches, or you're accepting these minor bumps, not just patches here." And so they deprecated a whole slew of things in a minor update. So
didn't we solve this problem with lock files? Like what happened there?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just got a message. I woke up to a message that said, or when it got to my computer, I saw a message of like, "Hey, is this happening to you?" And I was like, "Certainly not. I mean, I can run it right now, but now when I delete package JSON, yes, it does." So that's how we kind of figured out it was a version thing.
While you've been talking, I've been trying to determine what the tilde and the caret operators are called.
Yeah, I don't know.
They don't have names. They just call them the tilde and the caret. I thought they'd have like a cool name, like Ruby's got its hash rocket. Can we get like a semantic versioning operator name? That'd be cool.
Yeah, a wine bottle opener operator and I don't even know. Turtle house?
Spilled wine operator? Turtle house.
It's the roof. Dog house? Tortoise house? I don't know.
Oh, like a Snoopy
Tortoise
dog house.
Going ham upstairs, which is what I thought about it. Yeah, so anyway, that was
brand new sentences.
Yeah. So that was like my day today was, and I just like having trouble in general too. Like I have the UI kit open and I have this other app open and I need to do MR review. So I go back to develop on the UI kit and then I go to the other branch on the other app and things are just broke. And so what I end up having to do is go to the parent directory and run my shell script that nukes it all. Mm-hmm. And it deletes node modules on both sides. Then it does a reinstall, and then it does a relink between the UI kit, npm link that is, which creates a symlink, right, in node modules. So I did that twice in Node.js. And so then what I did was I went into the app, npm uninstall the UI kit, reinstalled it, then relinked. Good to go. It worked. I was like, okay, that was like an hour of my life. Now I can review this 3-line change and approve it, So anyway. Yeah, I'm loving the Cypress side of things, but kind of hating the other npm linking side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a script like that in our Dockyard repo that just basically nukes everything. It resets the database. Well, it does ASDF install, right? In case that changes, because the tool versions are checked in. It wipes the database, npm install, migrate, Credo, dialyzer. It's just a chore to switch branches. It kind of sucks. I think I mentioned that before, but
Yeah,
it still sucks.
I feel that because then I'm like, all right, I need to do this review, but do I really want to stash what I'm working on? Reset this, go to the other one, probably reset that one too, just to open it up. And like, I should be running everything. I should be actually like testing everything.
Just use containers, Sean. Just have everything running in a container.
I could Dockerize it. I probably could. I probably should Dockerize it at this point because then I could literally yeet it off of the hard drive into nothing.
Not enough RAM. Not enough fans to
Not
support
enough fans. That's right. Do Dockyard and Metal do the same thing? Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, more or less. I think
More or less.
Dockyard is probably, different tech stacks maybe, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're consultancies for larger companies.
We're pretty much all in on Node these days. We haven't really taken in any projects that are not Node. And for backend stuff too, we seem to be standardizing on Nest.js, which seems pretty okay, honestly. It's sort of, it like runs Express under the hood, but you can swap it out for Fastify. And let me grab the link to it. This is sort of what we've been, as we've been building Node apps, we've been sort of like slowly working on re-implementing this, not knowing Nest was a thing. So essentially, like, piecing together all the different tools that Nest combines and makes sort of like first party. So one day someone was like, hey, have we seen this? And people are like, kinda, because we've like built it 3 times, but so we're kind of like standardizing on Nest.
Your avatar reminds me of like a Brad Neely cartoon, and I love it.
We also get like a wide range of products or projects where some of them are healthcare related, and you're stitching together a bunch of services, like 9 of them. That's a whole thing. I don't know if I can talk a whole lot about that, but I feel bad for the people involved in that project. There was no actual database on the app side. It was all like a giant gateway, essentially. So yeah, the project.
Why didn't you use what's Anthony's thing? The GraphQL thing.
Oh yeah. StepSend. I don't know.
Yeah, you should use StepSend.
I wasn't on the project, so I don't know. I'm just over here fighting with MUI and TypeScript and other stuff.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about what Dockyard does because I'm just a contractor on this one project, but they focus on Elixir and Ember for the front end, but they're open to accepting projects from Rails and JS and anything else. So that's all I know.
We also do, I guess MetaLab does a lot of mobile stuff too. A lot of React Native, a lot of native iOS, and we have an Android team as well. So sort of all over the map. It was really fun for a while. Some of the iOS devs were learning TypeScript and React, and I was a mentor for that, and that was wild, let me tell you. Coming from Swift, and they're like, what? I don't
know how much. Paul was working on a really cool hardware project briefly, which was awesome too, because they were trying to put their toe in that. But
there's some cool stuff that I can't say officially on air. So, but yeah, MetaLab does like a bunch of, I don't know, it's all over the map kind of. I just happen to be, we just happen to mostly work with React and TypeScript these days. So yeah, that was mainly my update from this last week was kind of digging into testing. Oh, I wanted to shout out too. So Thomas was asking if we could have Cypress share in Discord. We could totally do that. But I also wanted to test out or shout out React testing library or testing library in general. In my opinion, this is where you want to be if you're getting into testing with JS. So testing library is killer, but they also have this testing library playground. I think it's called Testing Playground. So a lot of what I struggle with testing is like, okay, now I know kind of the test I want to write, but what's the best way to get this thing? Like, how do I traverse the DOM? What's the most like least fragile way of doing this? Like, do we like Cypress? Sometimes you have to add data. You have to add like data attributes. Is like one of the nice ways to do it. Nice ways. So like data dash test, and then that way you can that hook is there for the test. But testing playground has a nice little or testing library has testing playground, which is a nice little thing where you drop a bunch of markup, and it actually tells you, oh, if this is what you want to grab, here's the query that you should use to get that. And they also have a Chrome plugin as well.
Shout out to our listeners for feedback, because we've been doing this data test attribute thing also in LiveView land, and I kind of hate it, and I wish there was a better solution, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I don't know what's the right way to dig into a DOM and find that an element exists just for the purposes of testing, and testing its contents and attributes and stuff. And I want to know if there's a better web-friendly technique where I don't have these data test attributes floating around in production, because that kind of sucks. Like at some point you maybe strip them out, or like I don't even know. But again, I'm in the Phoenix Elixir LiveView land, so all that tech is still pretty green, and there's probably not something for that. But maybe there's some kind of standard or something out there that I don't know about that would, be nice to work with.
Yeah, I mean, originally I kind of was thinking the same thing where it's messy, but I can't think of a better way to do it either, and so I've become
just
okay
put
with
IDs on everything, like.
Yeah, I kind of at some point I kind of like that it's very explicit. Like you're thinking as you're writing the component, you're sort of thinking about how might I test this thing, or because like when you're writing code, you kind of want to think about decoupling things so they're testable, right? And I think that's an extension to the UI side where you're thinking about how can we construct this thing so it's, testable and repeatable, right? It's just that the artifacts live on in the browser. I don't know, but that's my thought on that, I suppose.
Surely there's some Webpack loader that can strip them out.
Probably. I mean, you could probably write it pretty easily. Hot DOM.
I'm not going to read that,
Oh
Thomas.
my God. Slap an E on the episode. Thomas has the best takes. That's awesome. So yeah, I don't know. It felt kind of good this week to identify an area where I kind of like wanted to grow and knew I needed to grow. Wanted to have more expertise there and just actually dug into it a little bit.
Thomas, I'll subscribe to that.
I'll ban myself.
I'll subscribe.
I'm starting to kind of break out of that feeling of frustration where I haven't mastered the thing as soon as I look at the README, I struggle with that a lot, so I'm starting to slowly get away from that.
README driven development.
Well, it's not healthy, really. If it's like stopping your momentum, I don't think that it's sort of healthy to continue for me to think that way. So it feels good to be breaking out of that thought process.
Well, it helps to have a side project where you can tool around on it with no consequences and, push the boundaries of whatever you're learning and learn more.
You've got no skin in the game, essentially, right? Like there's no client paying $2 million and you're like, I can't screw it up, So yeah, it's
how much is your time worth, Sean? Exactly.
So yeah, it's been a good week in that regard, I think.
Cool. It's been a bit of a stressful week over here.
Just coming back from vacation and seeing.
No, that's been fine. We picked up Monday and just hit the ground running. That was nice, actually. I've been a little refreshed, but I've been struggling the past maybe 2 days, day and a half, 2 days with something that was supposed to be simple. And of course, it just never is. Just never is, Sean.
Yep.
I'm talking about subdomains.
Oh, nope.
So, all right, I didn't even write any notes for this. I'm going to do my best to summarize timeline of how this has gone. The app we're writing, has a requirement to change subdomains often. Basically imagine like your user account, like shrockwell.whatever.com, right? When you're clicking on the site, you're changing subdomains frequently. And so that's fine. The first order of business for that was to be able to parse the subdomain out of the request and, figure out what it is so you can figure out what to display on a particular page, right? It's basically part of the route, right? It's part of your URL.
Yep.
Our first experiments were like, okay, what if we took the URL request URL and we rewrote it so it was like /subdomain/ whatever, and then we could just like do regular routing, like path matching. That ended in tears because various technical reasons. It was cool. It kind of worked, but it didn't work 100%. So it was sad because then you could just use, regular router stuff to like pull the subdomains out. Fine, whatever. So we've got this whole thing to pull subdomains out, verify the subdomain exists, render a 404 if you're not on a subdomain or if it's the wrong subdomain. Okay. Then the problem comes, okay, when you're clicking around the site, usually in Phoenix or Rails are using path helpers, right? When you generate a link, it starts with / whatever you're linking to. Well, you can't do that when the subdomain involves. You have to include the full http://subdomain.whatever.com, right? So fine, you have to use URL helpers instead of path helpers. Okay, it's kind of cumbersome because you have to take the existing subdomain and like force it to be a different subdomain or strip it out. So, of course, the problem with the way routes work in Elixir and Phoenix, I should say, is that they're macros that are generated at compile time.
Oh no!
So like you have your router, right?
Yeah.
And when you mix compile, what you end up with is like a route helper module that has a bunch of functions that are just generated at compile time with random names, random numbers of arguments, etc. So I wanted to like wrap those up in a nice clean way where you could specify I want the subdomain or I don't want the subdomain. So how do you fix a problem with macros? You use more macros.
Oh no.
So somehow I was able to get a PR approved that basically inspects the module and then wraps all of those functions in other functions that have the same names but do the subdomain thing using macros.
This sounds similar to something I saw today in the MetaLab Slack where somebody was asking for help with TypeScript in the developer channel, and so I popped my head in and looked. And it was a function that had two reduce statements in it. One reduced several arrays of regexes into one, and then reduced like a list of URLs or URL across them again. So basically, it was sanitizing URLs, and so all of us were like, "What is this doing?"
My God.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's what I felt like writing this. I'm like, no one's gonna maintain this or approve this, and so I did my best to like write it as explicitly with tons of comments as possible because God forbid a client ever has to touch it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the ergonomics of doing that were really, really nice. You've got a regular helper module, then you've got a subdomain helper module and like a root domain helper module, and they all have the same functions more or less. It's just different arguments.
Yeah.
So it has this parallel structure.
I'd like to see that. I know I can't, but
yeah, we'll talk. So that was a couple weeks ago. Okay. Now we're at the point where QA is starting to test things. And when you log in on a domain, it sets a session cookie. Fine. Then you navigate to a subdomain. Oh, guess what? You're not logged in anymore.
Oh, no.
Because you're on a different domain.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So what you can do is on the cookie, you specify basically this cookie belongs to, it's like a wildcard, right? Star dot whatever, right? So I did that. Push that up to our code base, tested it locally, it was working, pushed it up. Everything was broken. QA was blocked. Every development main was blocked. No one could load any. The pages were like spinners. It was a nightmare. No one could get work done. Like, what the hell's going on here? And mostly it was QA, actually. Turns out that I pulled in like a config that specifies the domain and a system environment variable, right? Public host name. Okay, I pull in the system environment variable and tell the cookies, okay, use this host name for your top level domain. Because in QA, we have a bunch of like random host names as you deploy all these QA environments. They have just garbage names.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to be determined dynamically. Well, because we're using some weird Kubernetes, Docker, Google Cloud, I don't even know, those variables are only available at runtime. But the way Elixir works
compile time
is when it builds the plug and the router and everything, that's all done at compile time. So now I'm hacking plug sessions like built into core of Elixir to like wrap them so they can load this info at runtime.
Ugh.
Find it. Got the thumbs up from Chris McCord, so that was cool. That was good. I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right here. Even though
blessed by the Lord.
The Lord McCord. Yeah. Great. So I tested it locally on Safari. It works. It worked in QA. I unblocked QA. Everyone's happy. Another developer sends me a ticket. He's like, hey, I'm merging your stuff. It's still not working. We get on a call. We screen share. He sends me some stuff. And I'm like, oh, man, you're on Chrome and I'm on Safari. Like, how could cookies be handled differently between browsers? Let me tell you. So we were doing all our development under localhost. And macOS does this cool thing where, like, it treats localhost as a top-level domain. So if you do whatever .localhost, it'll just resolve to 127.0.0.1, which is nice. So, like, you can say, okay, my app's domain is localhost, and then all the subdomains under that just forward back to local, or loop back, which is great. So we were doing that scheme in Safari. In Safari, that works great. I log in at localhost. I go into one of those subdomains. I'm still logged in. It's happy. In Chrome, if you log in at localhost and then you navigate to a different page, it doesn't honor that cookie. Like, just there's nothing. There's nothing. And so the live view wouldn't even like mount or load or anything because the session data was just garbage. It was invalid. It was missing. Cue the opening of multiple Stack Overflow posts. Turns out that Chrome will only store a cookie if the domain name has a period in it.
Interesting.
There has to be a period. So then that involved, basically at that point, we have to use our own custom domain that people can forward to localhost via Etsy host file or whatever.
Right.
So I had to write up a whole explanation of why this is so, change the default development domain. It turns out .test, there's a handful of top-level domains that are reserved via RFC 2606. They include .test, .local domain, .invalid, .example. There's one more I'm leaving out. But basically, these are TLDs that will never, ever become real TLDs. So you can use them for local testing. So I normalized on .test, had everyone be like, hey, set up your crap. So you can use whatever .test.
Nice. That would have been my choice too.
Yeah. And then, boy, all these rabbit holes I had to go down, man. So many paper cuts, so many weird tech things, browser differences and cookies. Like, I was just using Safari. Everything was working fine. Just because you need stupid subdomains, man. Just put it in the URL. Just do / whatever. Why do you need subdomains?
We can trade. You can fight with NPM for a week and I'll cry about cookies.
And then one more thing.
You should have stayed on vacation.
So I set up this thing called DNS Mask.
Uh-huh. With
It's
a Q, right?
with a Q, DNS MASQ. It's a homebrew package. It's a DNS server, I think. I don't even know. I just followed some directions that I found to set it up, and that'll basically let you route all .test top level domains back to your own computer. Great. Installed brew install, set up a bunch of config files, ping whatever dot test works. Cool. Start the Erlang server. OpenSSL is missing. Erlang won't start. Like what? Somehow Homebrew just totally nuked OpenSSL. Erlang is boned. Have to uninstall and reinstall Erlang from scratch.
Now I'm getting some flashbacks here.
Dude, this has been my life.
You don't have Java installed. Do you want to install Java so that you can run your docs?
Yeah. Why does Erlang need Java? I don't know. I will never know.
Don't know.
Anyway, close rant. That's I had a bad feeling about dealing with subdomains when I first started this thing. I'm like, I know in the back of my mind that there's issues with it. I never pictured that there would be so many technical limitations involved with implementing this, and now I know to just for next time I have to do it, I'm just not going to do it. Like literally do anything else besides this.
Right.
Let that be a lesson to you all.
I should have just stayed on vacation.
Sultan's asking, why didn't we do just app.localhost so we get the dot in the domain name? I did try that. There was some weird issue where randomly it just stopped resolving. Like it worked sometimes, but sometimes it wouldn't. And it worked on different people's machines intermittently. So that was unfortunately a non-starter. Like in the whatever .localhost, it was working 100% of the time for me while I was doing this stuff. And then as soon as I started like looking at it too hard, it broke and stopped working. So I have no explanation for that other than macOS MDNS resolver is probably messy and broken, but I don't know. I wish I could have just done .local, whatever .localhost and let it fly, but it ended up being really flaky when I looked at it too hard. So yeah. The more you know.
The more, yeah, exactly.
The less you wish you knew.
Well,
thank you. I just had to get that out of my system, man.
No,
it's been a
all
long,
good.
frustrating day.
It just makes me, I don't know, sometimes it's nice to hear stories like that too, because it's like everyone's struggling. It doesn't matter what side of the stack you're on, what you're building, everyone's struggling.
So Sultan brings up a good point. He says macOS isn't the one that resolves localhost or .localhost back to the loopback interface. It's the browser doing that, which was my experience as well. Chrome 100% of the time works. You can use .localhost as a TLD. But Safari was, again, intermittent. It worked some of the time. And so I can't explain it. I can't explain it.
Did you burn some sage next to your laptop?
I'll burn something green.
And with that note, it's almost the weekend.
Hell yeah. I know I keep saying this. I'm going to keep saying it. Thursday's a new Friday, Sean. Happy Friday.
Friday half days.
Yeah, man.
I have a Sprint Retro, and I have this weird bug happening in this UI component. Test runs fine, but it actually clicking in the browser does not. Wish I had Cypress that I could actually script the clicking, but I can't. So, yeah. Anyhow, looking forward to it. Well, if anybody has any thoughts on testing or Cypress, I've heard mixed reviews from some people. Some people say that it can be flaky at times, and that's fine. I'd love to hear more experience, I would love to hear about more experiences with Cypress is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, if you have any experience with Cypress or Jest, or I know that Jest can probably do some WebDriver stuff as well, just hit us up.
As always, you can reach us on Twitter, DNC Show. Sean is Sean Washbot. You still on Twitter these days, Sean?
A little bit, not super often, but a little bit.
Well, blow up his Twitter DMs, people, and I'm sure Shrek will.
What is next?
Every time.
I don't even recall anymore.
We've done this like 200 times already.
Yeah. Show notes, right? Yes. Everything we talked about today is going to be available in the show notes at dnc.show. So I even included a link to RFC 2606 if you want to read it. You'll just have to zoom in a few times because the text is so small, but you can read it. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, or if we talked about something that sounds interesting to you and you're looking for the link, it'll be at dnc.show.
80 character columns ought to be enough for anyone, Sean.
Should it?
We're streaming on Twitch right now. Well, right now, not right now when you're listening to this. Twitch.tv/DNCcast, Thursday nights, 6 Pacific, 9 1 True Time Zone. Come on by, say hello. Welcome to new follower John, whose last name I literally can't pronounce because there's not enough vowels in it, but appreciate the follow and the discussion here. This has been fun.
Yeah. And if you can't make it to the recordings on Thursday nights, but you still want to be, involved in the community, then you're in luck because we got a Discord channel. We have a Discord server with many channels in it, actually. So
it's a one-to-many relationship, Sean.
Yeah,
it's a foreign key constraint.
That's right. So some of the conversations we have tonight, they're happening throughout the week with various people involved, and so if you're looking for a community to plug into, if people just want to help other people learn, or help themselves learn, then you should check it out. So if you head to dnc.show, there should be a link to the Discord invite in the header, or if you're looking at the show notes right now, there will also be a link to an invite there as well.
Yeah, man. Do it. You won't. How many times have you listened to this track?
I don't know, but I have this pizza sitting next to me for the last hour.
That's some serious willpower right there.
Yeah, I'm surprised Watson didn't come and yank it away from me.
You better go take care of that before he does.
Yeah, I think he fell asleep.
Cool.
Well, thanks everybody for hanging around, getting a React testing lib now. It's real good, Thomas. It's real good. I should also mention too that one thing that I was kind of bummed about, I was like, okay, well, Cypress uses shy assertions or like shy syntax, and React testing library has its own. But like Brixru is saying in the chat right now, there's a testing lib for Cypress, so that way you can unify them across, which would be real nice, real handy. So yeah, shout out Brixru. Thanks for sharing that little bit of info.
I know some of those words.
Cool. Well, again, thanks everybody for hanging out and chatting. It's been fun.
Yeah. Talk to you later, dude.
All right. See you, everybody. Boop. Hang around for a little bit. Me. Yeah. I haven't actually tried that myself, Brixru, but that's something that I've been wanting to try. I did to see that.
Waiting for the next banger. It's kind of quiet. I need a capo.
Throw the fire and flames. I've seen them. I've seen them live.
Dragon Force.
Yeah. This was more than 10 years ago now. It was, I don't even know. I was in high school when I saw them, or like right after high school when I saw them. So this would have been like 2004 to 2006, around then. And yeah, so we saw them and they were opening for Killswitch Engage at the time.
Wow.
And so we were going to see Killswitch, and we went to the mall across the street from the club to get food at the food court. And I'm standing in line, and I look next to me, and it's Herman Lee, the guitar player from Dragon Force, standing next to me. And so, not thinking, I was just like, "Oh, you're Herman Lee," and he was like, "Hey, man, we're people too, and I'm just trying to get some food." And I was just like, "Okay,
Wow.
I'm not trying to stop you from getting any food." That's my Dragon Force story. I get it.
Yeah.
You just wanted some of the, I forget what I was even eating, but yeah.
We visited a friend in New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, and I don't know. We just went to a bar one night, and there was some music. It was pretty bad. I'm not gonna throw the band name under the bus, but it was not great. It was just kind of like loud and whatever. And so we're hanging out at the bar afterwards, and we're just talking to some guy, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think of that band?" And we're like, "Yeah, whatever." And like, he's like, "Yeah, I'm the bassist." He was totally just baiting us. It's pretty
This is when
funny.
you saw YouTube.
Just open mouth, insert foot.
I never once did that to anybody.
What's that? Oh, try to like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But also I didn't try to, I was always working the merch table anyway, so. You missed it last week. Drew and I were sharing some tour stories from back in the day.
That's pretty good.
Drunk people trying to fight us. Fight him, rather. Hey, did you say that to my girl? That wasn't me, man. No, you said it, didn't you? It wasn't me.
Shaggy defense.
I wasn't even there. I'd never seen you before in my life. You're lucky I'm drunk. Okay.
I've tried and failed multiple times to hang out with bands after shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you try to give them food ever?
No.
No.
Is that my flaw?
Did you offer to wash some laundry? Because it'll work. They'll always work. Well, unless they're like a really successful band, they won't care that. But if you're just if you're trying to hang out with some scrubs like I was, then I would have taken you up on that.
I made this one band I like, Tally Hall. Oh, here they are, right there. That's them in that poster. I made Pokemon cards of each of the band members, the five band members, and they each wear different color ties. Like they wear, 5 different color solid ties, and so I made Pokemon cards that matches their tie colors. And I gave them to them, and unfortunately I screwed it up because I accidentally put one band member. I put the wrong photo on, and the guy looks at it, he's like, "This isn't me." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was so embarrassed." And he's like, "No, it's actually better this way."
One of the stranger things that's happened to me was we played the show somewhere, and I tell this story and I feel like a jerk for telling it because I'm like grateful that someone was thinking about us. But so this person came up to us and she was like, "Oh, I drew all your spirit animals," and she like proceeded to hand us all like these crayon.
I remember you
drawings
told me
of,
about
like,
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool though. I think that's cool.
I didn't know what to do. I was like, thank you.
Just it's a thought that counts, right? Someone's thinking
Exactly.
about you.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like it was. I didn't know how to respond to it.
Yeah.
Like, well-
It's just it was not prepared for this interaction.
What do you say? What was my spirit animal? I think I was some sort of like wolf type thing. My brother was a bear. I remember that.
That fits.
Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm already like, not super outgoing, so I was just like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, thank you.
I actually have a. Do I have it? Hold on.
Yeah, so that's basically. I didn't ask to like how they came about these drawings, but
Okay. So Tally Hall, this band, they have a song called and it's just an ampersand is like the name of the song, right? So I wrote out an and I like held it up every time they said it in the song, right? But it's just a box of Frosted Cheerios. Like I just cut it out, but I got them all to sign it, which is cool. But every single one of them had the same reaction. I handed them to sign, and they look at it and they just kind of like turn it over, and like every single person had the exact same response to me handing them this floppy piece of cardboard. I got them all on here though. That's pretty awesome.
It's I bet they appreciate it. They're just like, I don't know what to.
Exactly.
I don't know what to do with my
What
hands.
is this garbage you've handed me to sign?
It's weird for me to think that I have like signatures on things somewhere
Oh yeah.
on this planet. Shirts and water bottles. I used to carry around this water bottle where if people asked me to sign something, I would have them sign my water bottle first.
That's awesome.
It just made me feel better about the interaction. So this water bottle was just like full of Sharpie.
That's cool. I love that. My friend who went to a lot of shows. We actually became friends at a show. She had a deck of playing cards that she would bring with her to shows, and she would have each card would have someone's signature on it. Such a great idea. Cool. Yeah. What was funny about her was that we met at a show and became friends, and then we were looking through pictures of our shows together, and we found ourselves in the background of her pictures from old shows.
Is that Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know Joe? Well, she's in the chat. Chat. I told that story before. Okay. Yeah. I saw her in New Hampshire.
Freaked out for a minute.
What's that?
Did you know that? I said you're about to be freaked out for a minute.
Yeah, I know. Hi, Sophia. Thomas, congrats on your losing your job.
Yeah.
It's confusing because I guess I just had assumed that since you had moved, that the job was over, but the job is not over. Of course, it's remote. You were just Wait, really? Is that your new gig, HashiCorp? I didn't know that. How did I miss that?
Trading in JS for Go. Becoming a real engineer.
Thomas, I have a request. Thomas, you're my in now. HashiCorp Packer. I have a problem with HashiCorp Packer. I don't know what you're working on.
I forget. He told us at one point.
I'm sorry. I have been completely absent from the Discord. Console. Never mind. Forget it. You're useless to me. All the HashiCorp things were in JSON, and then they came up with their own like config language called I forget what it's called, but they only sort of like half implemented it, and it was in beta, but all the docs were like, use the new configuration language, and then you go to GitHub to try to do the configuration thing, which is basically just a transpile under JSON as far as I can tell. And it's like, oh, this doesn't work. Like, it's literally just not finished. And yet all the docs told you to use it.
Yeah, Thomas, would you just go ahead and move around to departments as we need you?
Yeah, just get it done. I don't care. I don't care what it takes. Managing actually, you know what? If you do nothing else, can we just get comments in JSON, please? I know JSON technically doesn't allow comments. I'm building infrastructure documents. Let me write friggin' comments. Get me all worked up again. Yes, change the JSON spec. I promise you, it's okay if you just do if you just parse JSON with comments in it. I promise you, it will be fine. You don't have to be strict about it. Drives
JSON
me
C.
Insane. What's C with comments?
Yeah.
Hate it. I hate it.
VS Code is a thing like that, right? Where you can put JSON in like the configuration file and stuff.
You can
put comments in there. Yeah.
Sure.
Com. Where am I going, Thomas?
It's related to his earlier comment. JSON, I get it, but that's what I'm saying. HashiCorp Packer doesn't support it. It literally will outright reject your file if you try to feed it a JSON file. Like, don't make me pipe things through a thing to. Yeah. I'm all fired up now. I haven't even looked at this stuff in months.
I mean, you can just let us in there. We'll make some changes. Just like prop the back door open. We'll do it ourselves.
Thanks, Thomas.
You won't even know we were there.
I'll open an issue if I have to. Rant over.
All right. Well, I think I need to get some dinner and decompress and stuff.
That's good. You got a couple weeks off, Thomas. That's good.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah, it's approaching midnight snack territory over here.
You can have some of my pizza.
Aw, what'd you get?
Just pepperoni.
It's good. Classic.
Mm.
You know, I never liked pepperoni growing up. Just couldn't. Just was always just like a cheese pizza kind of guy.
Oh yeah, Thomas, you're over on that side now.
Yeah, he's in the one true time zone.
Do you have a bed? No, not a leaky air mattress?
Oh God. How much for the guitar? The ukulele? Oh boy, I can't point. It's mirrored. Oh, or this guitar. You want this guitar? Oh, your stuff doesn't get there till tomorrow. Ooh, what are we looking at? Tell me more. The ukulele's not going anywhere because Jess got me that as a gift and has sentimental value. And how else am I going to play covers of Ingrid Michaelson if I don't have a soprano ukulele? Look at that guy. That is pretty. This guitar, I literally bought using Facebook Marketplace. I skateboarded across campus, gave some kid in another dorm cash, and just skateboarded across campus with it. No case, no whammy bar, no chords, nothing. Just a crappy Stratocaster piece of crap. It's good enough for government work. DNC meetup, huh? Where could we do it? A conference? Could we do a conference? Could be a thing.
Yeah, I could do that.
I came like this close to submitting a paper to LixerConf. I really should have done it, but I just couldn't come up with something interesting and also couldn't justify spending the time to do something to my, do that whole thing. PodCon. What is PodCon? Is that a Docker thing? Oh no. You fell in cello.
Oh no. That's cellos are big. Cellos are cool. I've never tried to play one.
GopherCon, like the obsolete internet protocol? Oh, PodCon, podcast, of course. I don't know why I kept thinking like the only two things that came to mind were Docker and friggin' what's that Objective-C thing for bringing in dependencies? CocoaPods. CocoaPods.
Yeah.
God, what do podcasters have in common? So much different content out there. Aw. I'm glad you think that about that. Think that about us, Sean.
Decent voices.
Or John. Sorry. Oh, by the way, Sultan, you're still here. You mentioned about my microphone. I wanted to raise a disclaimer that you're not hearing this microphone stock. I'm running it through Audio Hijack, which has a compressor and a peak limiter. So that's part of the reason why it sounds a little more studio-y. I have it basically boosted and compressed for the stream. I do that in post as well. But yeah, it's not stock how the mic sounds. If I turn those blocks off, you can see it's a lot quieter. It has a little bit different response. Wait, that's still on. Off. All right, now they're off. Check 1, 2. This is how it sounds raw at about 75% gain. Anyway, really quiet. I can look at the. I can see the levels.
Yeah, it's like half the volume.
Yeah. Yeah, the mic is not very sensitive, which I think is by design. There you go. Let it all out.
Boom, boom.
The other mic I was using before was actually a shotgun mic of all things, because I don't know, I listened to like this podcast mic review video, and it was the one he did like 5 or 6 different random mics, and it was the one that I liked the most. But I don't know, it was not a good match. It was kind of touchy. You had phantom power, and I don't know. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, thanks for $35 mic from Amazon is insanely sensitive.
Oh, so 2 other mics, since we're talking mics, that have been surprised me. Number 1, when we were at MS Ignite, we were in basically a fishbowl. There were these plastic cubicles. There were like 5 or 6 of them in a row, set up in the middle of a convention hall floor. 4 walls, no roof, plexiglass so you could see in. Like pretty much the worst possible environment you could record in. There's music and people walking by and all stuff. And they gave us these Audio-Technica mics or headsets with a mic and friggin' flawless audio. It was amazing. It was amazing. I could not get over that. Let me just find a link to those because they were amazing. These ones. BS, I think it was this, BPHS1. If you're in a oh boy, that's a URL and a half. I'm sorry. If you're in a crappy environment, these things are great. The other mic I wanted to mention too is the freaking stupid, crappy Logitech USB ones. I use them on Remote Ham Radio because they're communications mics. They're designed for your voice to sound crappy over ham radio, which also sounds crappy. And you get amazing audio reports using the freaking stupid plastic Logitech USB headsets. Go figure. So yeah, good audio is easy to find these days, I guess. Now that's all I have to say about that.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah.
Chat, you good? I think they're good. I don't hear anything.
Thanks for coming by, everybody.
Thanks you very much. This has been fun. Cool seeing a couple new faces and some regulars, and you guys are great. Good.
See you in the Discords. Let me pop that invite in here. I don't know.
Pop that link in there. We got a bot. There it is. Join up. Party up. Cool.
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 All right. I'll see you, everybody.
Good night.